Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host.
Hi everyone and welcome to the show. It's Trevor Stockwell with you here today. And one of the names my guest Sulonda is affectionately called is the Communication Ninja. So before I explain more, let me just check something with you. Do your communication skills have any room for improvement? Or have you mastered them? Are there specific communication habits, pitfalls that you just kind of trip yourself up with quite regularly, not quite sure why? Well, relax, pay attention because you're in the right place. Sulonda is a licensed marriage family therapist. She's a certified sex addiction therapist and a certified life coach, amongst other things. She's also the author of several books, a couple of very interesting titles, I think. One of them is What Men Absolutely Must Know About Women. And the other side of that is 10 Big Secrets to Attract Amazing Men. So welcome, Sulonda Smith.
Oh, hello. I'm so happy to be here, Trevor. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm excited to plumb your expertise with regards to just the whole human side of relationships and communication. I think whatever business we're in, whatever endeavor we're trying to kind of accomplish, you can't take relationships out of it and it still prosper as well as it could. So we're students here to learn from your expertise. The Communication Ninja has full reign. So yeah, chop up all the bad habits and improve our communications. You are known as the translator as well, aren't you? Because you can bridge the gap, kind of the male-female communication pitfalls that we have quite regularly. Before you sort of dig into that side of it, what's some of your journey that's sort of helped you get to where you are, where you can help so many people in this area?
Well, interestingly enough, many of my stories not only have to do with just my training or the research that I've done, but actually growing up with 8 brothers. And that in itself has been like, what do they call it? Ground zero for training.
Absolutely.
And that's been more of an impact in my understanding and knowing about men, and then also my own personal journeys and my own relationships, the ones that I don't like to say failed relationships because we get lessons from every single experience that we have. Those have been teachers as well. So my experiences growing up with my brothers, in addition to my formal training, has equipped me to use my ninja skills to, yes, like you said, slice away those things that no longer serve myself or others.
Perfect. So it's a very real life journey with, brothers to practice on and learn from, I guess, amongst.
Yes.
Maybe we should get your brothers on the show as well at some point. Oh, that's good. So what would you say would be the number one communication problem that maybe business owners face at home? Let's start there first.
Okay, so just a quick story. I was having some contractual things done to my home, and the contractor asked me what I did for a living, and I shared I work with men and women with communication. He said, "Ooh, I have a question for you." I'm working with this lady who doesn't seem to understand that she just can't change her mind in the middle of a project and want me to add a tub when I've already fixed it for just a shower. And she's not getting it at all. It's like our communication is really, really off. It's like worse than the communication I have with my wife, and I don't know what to do. So that story really hit home for me, that it's time for us to learn more about who we are as men and women, or the bodies that we're walking around in. Because I think our souls are, our inner beings. We're wrapped up in these spacesuits. I call these spacesuits, but we're wrapped up. And it dictates how we express ourselves. So if you're a man or a woman, sometimes we think we're talking to the same person than what we're packaged in, but we're not. It's like I always tell women that you're not talking to, a hairy woman, and men vice versa. So you have to learn how that person speaks because it really is a different language.
Yeah. And it's easy to forget that on a regular basis, I would say. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. There's also like, I don't know if you've heard of DISC and the personality, the behavioral kind of analysis. That in itself is one of the things that I learned as well. Like, D's don't think like I's and all the rest of it. And I won't go into all of that now, but just a regular reminder that people are different. They have different perspectives, I think is huge. So no, that's really good. Would you say that's the same problem within a business perspective as well?
Oh, absolutely. Not only the personalities, not only the behaviors, how we were raised, what we learned, what we haven't learned, but it's also our wiring. So if you have more X's or Y's, it depends on who you are and how you show up in the world, and your belief system. Definitely, work life and home life can be difficult to get what you want or what you're after, or to achieve the goals that you're seeking if you can't communicate and get the support that you need.
Yeah. So how can me as a guy, once I'm aware that, okay, I'm not talking to a guy, I'm trying to communicate to the best of my abilities to a lady, what are some of the other things? We'll go the other side as well. So everyone listening that's female, hang on, we'll get there as well. But what would be a good approach for me? What would be some of the things I need to consider or be aware of?
Okay, that's a really good question, because typically what I do when I work with my clients is to find out who you are, like how you actually show up in the world. Like, how do you communicate? What's important to you? What isn't? We also look at the patterns that you've developed growing up and how you've been sort of chiseled in the several relationships that you've had up until this point. So it's customary. But on an overall scale, I would first teach you about, if you didn't know this, just in case you didn't know it, I teach you about how women communicate, literally. Like, why is it that they ask the same question over and over again? I'm sure you've experienced that at some point. It's like, I thought we fixed this. Like, why are we going back to this again? So I teach those points first so that you have an understanding why they do it and then not trying to purposefully torture you. So that's the first step.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, no, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I could go in a completely different direction here, but I'm not going to. As much as I would like to. Okay, yeah. So how can I understand the female perspective then better?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, learning a little bit. I do think that many men are very deep feelers. However, many women think that they aren't, but they are. And so for women, it's important, just as important for women to understand men. So learning that a few things. So here's like a really basic, super duper duper crash course. Most women, not all women, work from a feeling place. So they want to talk about different perspectives, ideas from a feeling. And if you can be okay with that, number one, because some men do get irritated by talking about feelings and the whole emotional piece, then you have a better chance of getting the problem fixed and solved than it going on and on. The second I would say is that she wants that conversation. Women have higher levels of oxytocin. So that's a bonding hormone. So she wants to talk. That's part of who she is. But men just want to fix the problem because that's how you're built.
Yeah.
So it might become annoying if she still tries to drag out, the issue. When you're like, we can clearly see if you move this and move that, it's done, right? But she doesn't see that. Well, why is it there in the first place? And who put it there? And what do we do so that it's not there again? That's how she thinks. She's always preparing, right? She's like the gatherer. And then the third I would say is, if you're speaking with her, be patient and let her finish what she's saying, because how women are wired, they gather things all day long and put it in a basket, for example. And then at the end of the day, they want to release it. And that might be with you, although you might not want to hold that space for her. I always tell women to call a girlfriend to give them the big details of everything. And when you're talking to your man, give them the bullets. So keep those things in mind, and I think you'll be okay.
Okay. Yeah, there's some sound wisdom in that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, from a male perspective, I would say yes, definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So from a from the female side, then let's be fair. I don't want to get letters and all sorts, emails and everything else. And we're biased.
Mhm.
How can ladies understand men better? Then you've kind of touched on it already, I think, but just dig a little bit deeper into that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember giving a talk one time. It was a training. And when I told women that it's super helpful to ask a man a question one time and not several different ways, a lady stood up and she says, well, if I don't do that, he just doesn't get it. Men are stupid. And my heart sank in that moment because I knew that she wasn't happy in her relationship and that it was not very successful, right? So I said, okay, I get that. I understand. I said, but you also have to understand women have sort of like a natural tendency to want to repeat the question or repeat an answer because they want to make sure that everything is right because they have like caregiver syndrome, so to speak. You know, they're built to care for people. So she wants to make sure that everything and everybody is okay. So she's gonna like map out the entire land, and make sure that it's understood. So if she knew that men, their primary purpose, one of the primary purposes I want to say actually, is to fix a problem, then she'd know that he was really working for her in a sense like, I want to make you happy. I'm like, I'm your superhero. I'm the one that is here to protect you, to provide for you. I'm performing for you. I'm problem solving for you. I'm doing all this for you. But if she doesn't understand that because it doesn't look like what's in her head in terms of how a problem should be solved, then she won't get men at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. It's fascinating, isn't it, in the sense that like both sides have so many positive things to offer relationships, and yet just the wrong interpretation of any one of those kind of communication lines that you've mentioned just derails the whole conversation 9 times out of 10. And it's having that awareness at the time that, oh, hold on, think like a lady in this conversation. What is it that she needs? And then for her, kind of think like a guy. This is how he's hearing me. It's a challenge, isn't it? It is definitely a challenge.
If you weren't raised with that knowledge and you weren't taught that, and then all of a sudden you're 30, 35, 40 and figuring out that your relationship is horrible.
Yeah.
Because you are the common denominator, right? Each one is the common denominator in his or her experience. Then that's what causes the breakdown. And then it's hard to go back and say, well, I've been doing this for 20 years. How could this be wrong? Because if I have to change it internally, that means that I wasn't doing it right. And then subconsciously, I don't ever want to think that I've been doing something for so long and it was wrong. It can be very disconcerting. It can actually spiral people into a depression. And what I've learned over the years, I've been a psychotherapist for over 20 years. What I've learned is people don't adapt well to change because of how we were taught to hang on and attach ourselves to our belief systems. That's a problem.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem.
I can see why you're a very good coach as well, because you come from the perspective of the subconscious and the learned behaviors that just kind of run in the background. And most of the time, people aren't aware of their influence on what we do. So, some good insight there. Okay. Help us some more.
Yes.
Please. One of the reasons why I ask as well, because like if we're reaching out to, it's highly unlikely that business owners have just male customers or just female customers. Somewhere along the line, there's an interaction at lots of different levels. So we can understand it more in the home environment discussions, how best to kind of interact and be aware of other people. Although from what you said we also need to be aware it takes a lot of humility to really stand back for a second and go, actually, I think I've approached this wrong. I realize this is what you need, and I didn't start off that way. I think if we could do that, maybe, and have the presence of mind to do that at the time, that would be amazing. But let me not get off topic anyway. How does it play out more in the professional business kind of realm where we're trying to either reach new clients or suppliers or whatever aspect it is? Is there a difference, or is it we need the same approach?
Both. And the reason for that is when you're talking to your sweetheart, your bae, your baby, you may be a little bit more lenient, or you might be a little bit more softer, or accommodating. You might put up with a little bit more. But in the business world, it's like, oh yeah, nope, done. I'm not dealing with that customer, that client. Yeah, I don't need that. Who do he or she think they is to come in and blah, 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 right? But a lot of business owners are leaving a lot of money on the table with that type of attitude because they think that the client of the opposite sex should behave in a certain way in order to do business with him or her. And that is a big no-no. So yes, it is sort of the same. And yes, it is different. So you want more of a diplomatic approach, still using the tools of what you've learned of an opposite sex behavior and how they're wired. And yes, it's just a matter of being more mindful to be respectful of that person and how they move in the world. It's kind of like, I remember in Mexico, I was doing some consulting work in Mexico. And one of the things in Mexico, it's not all people from Mexico that do this, but they don't trust you until you go out and have a drink with them. Well, I'm not a drinker of alcohol, right? So I was like, what do I do with this? How do I be true to myself and my business, and how do I honor this client? Because I really enjoy working with the client. So I just said, hey, I don't drink alcohol. That's just who I am, just for personal reasons. However, I would love to go out with you if I can drink something else. And first they were skeptical because they were like, anybody who drinks alcohol, we just don't do business. I said, well, I'm willing to lose this, account or working with you because I don't consume that. And then that would be against my own values as not only a person, but as a business owner. So your values have to take precedence first. So if you know who you are and you're working with someone, that's first. Second, if you're a man or a woman, get to know who men and women are on a basic level, and then zoom into who your person is and how they do business. So yes, the same rules apply with your sweetheart or your bae. And then you just kind of kick it up a notch in terms of the respectable piece and really getting to know who you're working with.
Universal principles in lots of ways, aren't they? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is a strategy and a skill to switch in different environments, isn't there? I think. Which takes a bit of time. I like what you said though. It's kind of in that scenario about going out for a drink and that. It's part of it's the conversation of this is kind of not me 100%, but maybe meet me halfway. I'll come out with you, but you have to accept that I don't do alcohol or whatever the scenario might be. And I think, if you have that bit of a conversation, it's back to the human level, isn't it? There's no kind of snub. Mm-hmm. It's just, I'm just explaining why, this. And I think, the more that we communicate, because it's based on our values, that's who we are. They either accept us for who we are or they don't, and whatever the scenario is. And I think such a key thing, stick to your values, operate from those. And that's where authenticity comes forth and is evident for everyone to see. Plus fact, I think if somebody doesn't respect you for who you are, why would you really want to do business with them anyway? There's kind of, but hey, that's a separate conversation. I'd love to kind of ask you, okay, what are the 10 tips? Maybe we haven't really got time for all 10, but you shared already, if we stop the conversation there, there's lots of good stuff that we could put into practice straight away. But what are some of I know you're very specifically you're very good at helping men, partly, as you said, you've got lots of brothers that have helped you get to that point. You do specific programs for men in particular, aren't you? And I think just the fact that you're a lady communicating to men in a way that, I think that in itself is a positive advantage if men are humble enough to listen to ladies and not get tied up in their own insecurities and whatever else. Tell us a little bit about how you help men specifically in some of the courses and the programs that you've developed.
Sure, absolutely. Well, my audience is very niche. I help amazing men in STEM, who are who feel unsupported and unappreciated to have more sex, support, and sanity in their relationships and in their lives. So it's very specific, although I do have men, over that age bracket who also come. I discovered that they really wanted help in my therapy practice when over 50% of my clients became men. And it wasn't the wife or the girlfriend calling to make the appointment. They were making it for themselves. So I figured that was an audience that was ready to listen and to learn in a different way than maybe men who are over 45, who wouldn't be able to handle the information. So from that perspective, as a woman, I do offer a more gentler, warmer, open approach and unbiased, non-judgmental. And I think that's what draws in the men that I work with. In my programs, I have a membership program where it is just a plethora of videos on several topics. There's 12 categories, from spirituality to parenting to relationships to lifestyle. And right now it's just myself, but I have a lineup of speakers that I'm bringing on to talk about finances and just 360 degrees for men, in addition to courses that I've created. I have one launching this summer called Women Are Like Video Games, Crack the Code. And so that's all about the communication and just teaching them who women are so that they feel like they're not powerless in the relationship and that they're not begging for intimacy or feeling like they're not supported or unheard. Because that's usually the complaints that I get from men in their relationships. In addition to, I run free classes as well. Twice a month, I put them on hold. I don't mind being transparent. I was doing some physical healing for the last few months. And so I will start that again in April, but I do some free classes twice a month. And, there's no video. You can be anonymous. You just listen in and get more tips and understanding. So I offer it on different levels. It depends on how deep people are ready to dive in to fix those relationship issues, because men can attribute to fixing relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. As a guy, thank you that you're doing that. I think I can talk for most men, if not everyone, but just we do need help communicating properly, understanding ladies. And just, I think also men can struggle very easily with the bravado, I have to have it all together because I'm a man. And yes, we have responsibility. Yes, there's a lot that we can do to help put it together and keep it together. There's also that element where you have to seek help where you need it. The smart people ask for help when they need help, don't they? I think the less smart people just go around in circles trying to fix it or ignore it completely and just hope it goes away. And yeah, neither of those really work, do they? Let me ask you about, are you familiar with the 5 love languages?
Yes.
How does that all kind of feed into the male-female? Because you could have a guy that's kind of got the same love language. For those that aren't familiar with the love languages, there's 5 primary love languages, isn't there? Acts of service, physical touch, quality time, words of affirmation, giving of gifts. I always remember that one last for some reason. So that's how I naturally express affection towards other people, and that's how I interpret or best interpret affection to me. Is that a good synopsis in
that's yes
20 seconds
yes.
or whatever? Okay, cool.
Yes, exactly. Great definition.
Because I was thinking about it as you were talking about, like, men need to remember that they're talking to ladies and not to men. There's an added dimension in the sense of if it's a guy that's love language is words of affirmation and he's talking to a lady whose primary love language is physical touch. He's got to learn how to talk her language, hasn't he? And she's got to learn really to talk his language. How can we do that?
I absolutely love that book, and I actually have many men clients who say they love that book because it's a quick read. There's a little quick quiz in the back, and it sort of like gives you insight to how your partner communicates and why they expect the same thing back, but that's not always the case. And even though there's 2 primary love languages, all 5, according to the author, Gary Chapman, are important in a relationship. So I think that's a great starting ground for any couple wanting to do some work, because I work with men, but I also have a program. I don't talk about it a lot, but I actually work with couples in an intensive environment. So if I'm working with a male client and he says, you know what, Sulonda, I'd really want you to work with us, then we'll talk about that. But I think that's a great place to start with that love language, so that you understand why that person is, asking you, where's my gift? You didn't bring me anything. Or why don't you want to spend time with me? He's like, we did. We sat on the couch and watched TV and I saw every Friday. So what more do you want? So yes, I love that book.
It's the communication again, isn't it? Realizing the other person's perspective and how they need it. It's not enough for me to tell you what I think in a way that I think makes sense to me. I need to communicate it in a way that you hear and makes sense to you, really.
Yes, and that's where men struggle. It's like that's that bridge, that gap. Like, okay, I know it's a problem, but this is how I'd like to see it fixed or solved, but I don't know what to do. And the problem is literally that the words and the languages used have different meaning and action between each gender. That's what I found to be the primary problem.
Tell us more on that. Go on.
Yes. So if, for example, like with the NCIS, like this, cop show that people watch. Well, what do you mean we didn't just spend time? We did just spend time together. We sat down and watched TV all night. Like, what else do you want from me? Well, she doesn't see that as quality time. Quality time to her that she's not explaining is actually going out to dinner, going to a movie, going to the park for a walk, holding hands, being snuggled up with one another. And for him, it's like, well, quality time is that we're actually sitting and we're together and that we're doing something with one another. So I don't understand. So if the two have not had a conversation to distinguish how each of them considers quality time, then that's why there's constant bickering or the misunderstanding that's happening. Many people don't know how to take that top layer off of not understanding. They don't have the skill set to know how to dig deeper. And you don't have to be a therapist or a coach, to do this. This is something that you can learn. I know, like Trevor, when you're working with your clients, you have to take the lid off a lot with your clients to get them to see, what's grounding them underneath that's not always solid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's going deeper intentionally, isn't it? And not just assume that, I'm not working. I'm here with you. I'm talking your language. It's like, no, you're not. I'm not. Yeah. And it takes effort on both sides, doesn't it? Because there is the intentional questions, but then also listening to, okay, what are they really saying? It's actually understanding what they're saying as well. This is really good. We are talk for hours on this. We've touched on lots of different areas. I was going to just kind of sound you out, if I may, kind of final few moments or whatever. How would we sell differently? So we've kind of talked on networking, we've talked in the home. Mm-hmm. Would we pitch our products, services differently to ladies and men? I think my answer would probably be yes to some extent, but help us understand, how could we do that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. First, what we talked about earlier is just get to know your client, your potential client, what type of business they have. Look at their core value system. You start there first, look at their core value system, and you would present your pitch in a way that addresses that person's core value system. If you're a man speaking to a woman or you're pitching a woman, you weave in their core value system. You also see if you can get any video footage of them speaking, or look at, how they've written out their business outline to really kind of like understand who they are and how they show up in the world in their business. And then you would go in and you'd use the language that many women might use, but I'm not saying you have to turn into a woman, right, to land this deal. But you would go in and you would say, okay, how do you feel about using this product along with your program? Instead of saying, what do you think about? Because men usually answer questions in a thinking fashion and women do in a feeling fashion. If you ask a man what he feels, more than likely he's going to give you a thinking answer. So how do you feel about that snowstorm that took out millions of people, or the snowstorm that happened in Texas? And well, I think if they would have been better equipped, then everything would have been fine. That's not a feeling answer, is it? Yeah. A feeling answer is, oh, I feel sad that so many people lost their lives, right? He gave a thinking answer. And so for a woman, you say, well, how do you feel if we use this product with your product? If you said, what do you think about it? Then it puts her mind in a confinement, because now you're asking her to be more analytical, which may detach her from the feeling that is actually the core of her business. Now, I'm not saying that all women operate like this, but just the complexity sometimes, or actually it's simple. It's simple. It's simple because you have to be willing to, what you said earlier, which I love that, the humility that comes in and offering something to someone on their level and not bulldozing in with your ideas or how you think it should play out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, of course they'd want to buy from me. I'm amazing. Mm-hmm. It's like, you think you are, but I have no idea. Yeah. No, that's actually a very good way that you put it. Because within the coaching context as well, just men like to think more, and we talk logic. Mm-hmm. Yes. Whereas if you're coaching a lady, it's zeroing more on the emotional side, because that's kind of more of the core of who they are, how they express themselves. So yeah, no, there's lots of wisdom in that. Thank you for sharing all of that. How as we close, because I have to close, it'd be great if you come back at some point, just mm-hmm. chat more, really, learn a lot more from you. But how can people kind of get deeper in what you're doing? So they may take the course or kind of listen to the free lessons that you offer on your website. But if they want to go to the next level and go, right, I'm really struggling, help me out. How can you help me? Is it a conversation? Is that the best thing to see if the coaching element is the best fit? What would be the best way?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. That would be the grounds. Someone can direct message me on Instagram if they're on there. The handle is my name, Sulonda Smith. You can just say, hey, can we, chat about, which will be just like a little mini conversation. There's no charge. It's a consult, just to do exactly that, what you said, to see if we're a good fit or if I can help. And then if you want to work together, then we'll talk about how that can work. If you're not ready for that, yes, you can jump on the free calls. You can find a link for that in my Instagram bio. If you're not on Instagram, you can go to my website, sulondasmith.com, and find a link there to jump on. Or if you just can't find anything at all, you can always email me at Sulonda at sulondasmith.com for any questions, for anything, if you can't find something. But yeah. Okay. This is fun work for me. This is truly my passion, and just love, after seeing so many men struggling, I was like, oh my goodness, okay, somebody has to help a little bit more than what's happening in the world.
Yes. Yeah. No. Hey, thank you for stepping up and sharing your wisdom with us, but also So yeah, and all the things that you provide. Also on your website, they can get hold of your books as well, can't they? Because I had a quick look around on that. So yes. I think from what you've heard today, you can't go wrong. At least getting the book to start with. That's the first step. Then check out the website and the different material on there, and think about having a conversation. Hours with Sulonda could save your marriage, could save you struggling in all sorts of different ways to try and figure out why it's not working. Or if you've just grown distant and you've kind of both settled that, hey, that's just the way it is. It doesn't have to be that way. If we learn how to communicate better, it's a win-win all round, isn't it? So thank you again for sharing your wisdom, your expertise, and for being very, very honest and practical with us on how we can sort our relationships out, how we can improve the way we sell to different types of people, and also how we network. You've kind of covered the whole thing. Obviously, we could deep dive more if we had longer, but you've given us a really good taste of A, you know what you're talking about, B, there's stuff that we can put into practice straight away, and also there's the opportunity that people can get your coaching expertise to really dig into the subconscious, the deep stuff that we don't really want to talk about, but unless we get the deep stuff sorted, we just go around in circles a lot of the time. So yeah, have a think. Everybody listening, have a think. What's the best way that Sulonda can help you? I guarantee she can help you. Thank you again for your time. We do need to wrap it up now, but everybody click on the link below. There'll be a link to Sulonda's website. Check out the stuff from there. And yes, be proactive about it. Save your marriage, build your company better, reach out to networking events and people better by understanding their language and how to communicate with them. That's it for now. We are signing off. We'll say goodbye. We will catch you next time. Thanks very much. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yeukai.businessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.